Welcome into the PFF State of the Franchise. It is your Washington Redskins edition. Sam, it's all about the quarterbacks this offseason with the Redskins. Kirk Cousins is out via free agency, and then they go out and trade for Alex Smith from the Kansas City Chiefs. They also send Kendall Fuller and a third-round pick back to Kansas City. What are your thoughts on this move going from Cousins to Smith? What can Washington fans expect?
Yeah, this is a really interesting move. The Redskins were obviously never comfortable, never 100% sold with Kirk Cousins as their franchise quarterback. We saw back-to-back franchise tags, and then they let him get out of the building. Alex Smith comes in off a career year. He looked fantastic for the Kansas City Chiefs last season, led the league in deep passer rating, 131 on passes that traveled 20 or more yards in the air downfield. Led the league in passer rating when kept clean, about 5 points higher than Kirk Cousins. This is a guy who looked fantastic last year, but it was kind of an outlier. You know, we were saying Alex Smith was under pressure going into last season. He had Patrick Mahomes, the first-round rookie, sitting behind him. He needed to do something. Are they going to get that guy again, or are they going to get the hyper-conservative Alex Smith that we saw through the previous 10 years of his career? That'd be a big concern.
Pathologically conservative. That's the way you like to put it. So that's the big question mark. I think it's tough to expect the same type of deep passing numbers. We're talking about Alex Smith, again, an outlier season in which he had Tyreek Hill, probably the most dynamic downfield playmaker in the NFL these days, Travis Kelce in the middle of the field, and they were also scheming up some of these plays. But you also have to give him credit. He was making some tight window downfield throws as well. It just wasn't in line with the rest of his career. So it was a career high 87.2 PFF grade. All the other stats were career highs as well. I just wonder how much of that came from the Kansas City system. On the other hand, though, Cousins, when he was here in Washington, benefited from a very good system. They do a really nice job of creating open throws. Cousins had the highest percentage of open throws in our charting the last couple of years. So his receivers get open, they create it off of play action. Maybe it'll work for Smith because they can create the same type of opportunities that he had in Kansas City.
I think that part schematically might even itself out between the two teams. The Tyreek Hill thing is definitely huge. He was uncoverable deep last season. Even excellent cornerbacks, guys like Casey Hayward with the Chargers, just weren't able to keep up with him down the field. That's a major thing. There's nobody that can do that in Washington right now, so they need to find somebody that can replicate that. But we saw all the way through the season that it was a different Alex Smith. Not just the scheme, not just Tyreek Hill. He was prepared to put the ball in the air when he saw one-on-one opportunities in a way he's never done in the past. He would just take a look at his guy, see he was single covered on the outside, and the ball was gone. That is key. That was a paradigm shift in what he's done in his previous career. And he needs to be able to do that again, because without that, he is a very flawed quarterback. He's a guy you can still win with, but you need a lot to go right, and you need to prevent him from costing you the game, because he's not going to make those big, deep throws down the field or those attacking high-risk plays. If he's still doing that, though, then you've got a legitimate quarterback.
So I do think that's the big thing with Alex Smith. Set the expectations that at the very least, he will fit into that game manager type of spectrum where he takes care of the football. He's always one of the best at avoiding turnover-worthy plays, throwing a low interception total every single year. So at the very least, he's keeping you in games. For Washington, though, we're also a couple years removed from, me rattling off their top playmakers every year. Deshaun Jackson and Pierre Garçon and Jordan Reed. We have a banged-up Jordan Reed at tight end still. And now it's Josh Doxson needs to step up at receiver. It's Jamison Crowder still in the slot. But Paul Richardson now coming in as well from Seattle. How does that fit work? A guy that they paid a lot of money for, a lot of guaranteed money for a guy that's a little unproven coming out of Seattle.
Yeah, Paul Richardson is a guy who I think is one of these players who is always going to be looked on as potential that hasn't yet been realized. And I don't know if he's ever going to realize it. He makes some spectacular catches. His ball skills are incredible. But right now he's seen as a contested catch kind of guy. He's an athlete, has some incredible combine kind of numbers, but he really developed into a guy who is a contested catch specialist. But statistically, he's not actually that good at contested catches. Last season, he caught only 41% of contested catches, contested targets. Stephon Diggs led the league up at 64%. Richardson was 64th among all wide receivers in that category. That is not good, but he had the fifth highest percentage of contested targets. So this is a guy that had an awful lot of opportunities to win contested catches and just wasn't good at doing it. At this point, there's not an awful lot left. You know, I like to say that if the first thing you can tell me about a wide receiver is that he's a contested catch guy, it means he's not a very good wide receiver.
It means he probably can't separate, and those are the guys you really want, guys that can get open. Defensive side of the ball, the other big name going out, it's Kendall Fuller, 90 overall PFF grade last year, breakout season, one of the best slot corners in the league last year, still has potential playing on the outside. What are they doing in the secondary now? You have Josh Norman on one side, they're going to bring in Orlando Scandrick, but a lot of movement now for Washington on the defense.
It is, and Scandrick I think was a significant addition because we've been discovering recently with all of our numbers just how important, statistically speaking, the slot is. It isn't just a throwaway position that is becoming more important because teams are playing more sub-package play than ever. It is statistically at least as important, if not more, than outside. You need a guy that can come in, play the slot to a high level. Otherwise, you are a target for teams that can exploit that. So Kendall Fuller was a big time slot defender for them. They needed a guy like Scandrick, a proven slot defender, to come in and patch up that position. And then they can look to target a cornerback in the draft and fill that other starting spot, which is probably the third most important position among cornerbacks. You get your star, Josh Norman on the outside, your number one corner. Then you get the guy that can cover the slot for the majority of the time. Then you find the second starter who can be hid more than those other two guys.
Yeah, so that is your cornerback depth, one of the most important things in the NFL. So as we do look forward to the draft in Washington, corner feels like a big need. Perhaps a linebacker, despite their bringing back Zach Brown, Mason Foster, just another injection of youth at the linebacker level.
Not despite that, because they brought back
or
Zach
because
Brown
they've kind of struggled in recent years. The defensive front seven, they have pretty solid edge rushers in Ryan Kerrigan, Preston Brown, but Preston Smith, do they attack the edge rush a little bit? Do they attack a little bit more in the front seven after going with Jonathan Allen in the first round? Feels like this defense can use help really at every single level when it comes to the draft.
I think they've definitely got a lot of depth in those. They need to find the star. They could use an extra edge rusher. Inside, I think they're actually in pretty good shape with Jonathan Allen coming back. Matt Ioannidis showed some nice play last season. They could do with that one stud nose tackle, but that's not a big investment position. I think there's a lot to like about that front seven, but they can always use to add depth or add a star player in the draft if one falls to them.
Offensive side of the ball, interior offensive lineman, a place to look, and then running back as well. Feels like the running back position is a place, other than Chris Thompson, what he's able to do in the pass game, the running back position, just finding that pure runner, still looking, I think, over these last couple of years. So.
And I think they would do well to think that wide receiver position still needs help.
Yes.
It hasn't been... The problem hasn't been solved with the addition of Paul Richardson. It might not even have been helped with the addition of Paul Richardson. So they still need to attack wide receiver at the draft and get Alex Smith some weapons.
A lot of different ways that Washington can go when it comes to the draft. Keep a close eye on that quarterback position and fill in that need. And the quarterback position, replacing Kirk Cousins, going to Alex Smith. Again, at the very least, you're getting a guy that's going to keep Washington in every single game. At the best, you have Alex Smith, who had an excellent season last year. That is your Washington Redskins State of the Franchise, powered by PFF Elite.